Hi, Steve here from Promise Money. Today's video is aimed at churches, charities, and to some extent those involved in social housing. Now, these are areas which are not well served by the mainstream lenders. Most lenders do not want to get involved, partly because of reputational risk. At the back of their mind is if this loan goes wrong and we have to take enforcement action, or worst case scenario, repossess, we don't want to be in a position where we are turning a charity out on the street, or a church, or vulnerable tenants. So that's where the mainstream sits. But the good news is there are lenders which are specifically set up to support this particular sector. They take a totally different view. They're not so much commercially driven, or whilst everything needs to make sense commercially, they are driven to do good in the community. So they are looking for projects which have a community benefit. Hence, whilst mainstream lenders get very nervous about social housing, social living, and funding that sector, these specialist lenders are very keen to do it. That's exactly what they want to do. They want to see social benefit. And they also have a similar attitude towards charities and churches. So that's the good news. Now, the challenge that can often happen if you are a charity or a church particularly is that you're potentially not an organisation who's focused on making profit. You're an organisation who's focused on doing good. And that can mean that unlike most traditional businesses who are generating profit and can show that they have affordability to do new things, to buy new buildings, to refurbish buildings, your organisation might not have that because you are spending your profits or reinvesting it back into the community. Take church as a typical example, we see many churches who run around a break even because they take their surplus cash and they give it back to the community in one way or the other. And that can be a little bit of a challenge because whilst these lenders want to support your sector, they do need to show that any loans that they grant are affordable. Therefore, it needs to come out of the disposable income of the charity or the church. How do we deal with that? Well, firstly, within the charity accounts, there are going to be certain things quite often which can be added back to profit. For example, you might have spent a big chunk of money on renovating a property or doing something which is a one-off cost, and we can add that back. The depreciation, we can add that back as well. And then there are other factors which I guess are a little bit more tenuous. And whereas your high street lenders, really, they're not interested in projections, these specialist lenders will to a certain degree look at, well, what is the benefit that you're looking to generate from the remortgage that you've got in mind, or the property acquisition that you've got in mind, and can we justify that going forward and take a more sympathetic and creative view to arrive at what we think are going to be your reasonable profits and income going forward as a result of whatever it is you've got in mind. I know it sounds a little bit fuzzy, but that's the way that they try and look at it. They can't totally be focus led, but it's something that they can factor into it. So that takes you to a place where, as a church or a charity, you probably need to be planning ahead a little bit further forward. For example, if you raise £500,000 a year and your costs are £200,000 a year, and every year that other £300,000 you distribute that through grants or giving or in some way distribute that out to the community, you're left with no profit. So if you're thinking that you might want to be buying a new building at some point in the future or expanding your activities, you need to think about, well, do I need to keep some of that back so I can show that's not my normal activity? That's definitely something to think about. Now, I'm dealing with a church at the moment who does exactly that, and the lender has said, well, look, if the discretionary giving that they are doing at any one time in the year is totally discretionary, and therefore they can throttle that back in order to support the loan. So for a short period of time, they can increase their profits, then that's something that they can consider. But it's more a question of how we evidence to the lenders that that is actually what's going on, rather than just plucking a figure out of the air and saying, well, our profits will be X going forward. So you need to think about how we're going to create that picture. And I found with a number of churches, they've approached us, and we've worked for quite some period of time. It could be a year or 18 months to say, right, okay, well, let's come up with a long-term plan to get your accounts from where they are now to where they need to be, so that you can then more easily justify the level of borrowing that you're looking to get to in the future. Just to talk a little bit about levels of borrowing, it's worth mentioning loan to values as well. Most lenders, apart from a few specialists and one or two high street lenders, are lending up to 65 to 70% loan to value. And that's really the case with lenders in the charity sector as well. But I just want to come back to this other important fact, which is they are looking to lend to support the community. So if you are thinking of buying a property because your church wants to move into it at some point in the future, which is going to benefit those in the community, you might be able to, I don't know, have a community hub there or something of that nature, then that's good. If you're going to buy a property and say, well, we're going to buy this property and we are going to rent it out to other businesses purely as an investment, then you're getting away from that social benefit. You're getting away from doing good in the community. And some lenders, and I've got one at the moment, who said, we don't feel, even though the long-term plan for this particular church was going to benefit the charity, in the short term, because the property they were buying already had a lease on it, a commercial lease as a commercial tenant, there was no real community benefit in the short term. They said, no, we're going to struggle to support that. So you've got to be very much focused on community good. So letting the property out to a third-party commercial organisation purely to make money for your charity isn't going to go down as well as letting that property out and maybe converting it to residential to support vulnerable people vulnerable people who can't find cheap accommodation in the locality. So the purpose is really, really important. I think the other thing to think about is also the green agenda. There are some lenders supporting this sector who only really get involved if they can see that you're taking a building which currently is not very green, and the purpose of the loan and the activities you're doing is to make it green, i.e. you're going to improve the EPC, you're going to make it hugely efficient, things like that. So be wise to the green agenda as well. But to summarise, there are plenty of lenders out to support you. Take a long-term view, look at your accounts, look at what you can evidence the charity or the church has in terms of surplus income each year, and think about how much does that need to be to support the level of borrowing that you're going to want at some point in the future. And very often what will happen is I'll be sent a set of accounts. I'll say, well, these accounts will get us to here. Here's what we might be able to add back. Let's talk about what you might be able to do over the next 12 months, and we might be able to get from here to here. So long-term planning is really, really important, unless, of course, you've got a really strong set of accounts with a good surplus income over the last couple of years. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope that gives you some heart that whilst the mainstream lenders aren't really too interested in supporting charities and churches, there are plenty of lenders that will. I would just add, if you're watching this video because you've seen the word church and you're thinking of buying a church to convert it to a different use, i.e. you're not a charity, you're not a church, you just want to convert it to maybe residential use and derive a commercial benefit or profit from doing that, then this video isn't for you. But there are lenders that will support that thing, as that type of activity as well. But that's a whole different kettle of fish. So I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, please subscribe to our channel and look out for the other videos we do. Please share it, and hopefully catch up with you at some point in the future with some other useful information. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.
you.